Welcome to the Savage Worlds GM podcast. I'm your host, Jared Savage Daddy Gunning. This episode brought to you by Roll20.net, the world's largest virtual tabletop. Check them out today at Roll20.net. Follow us on social media. We're at Twitter, SWGM Podcast, the Facebook page, SWGM Podcast. Go ahead, like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube, Savage Worlds GM Podcast, and subscribe and share and rate us on iTunes. We're at Savage Worlds GM Podcast. Also on Patreon / Savage Worlds GM Podcast. Tonight's topic, the annual traditional year-end rant. And here to rant, Chris, the Savage Mommy Fox.
I got it. Yeah, whatever.
Dave, the Rules Maven Scott.
I got nothing, baby.
And joining us for 2 consecutive episodes and here for the special year-end rant with a lot of pissed off players from his regular group, Dustin the Savage Intern Smith.
No, Mr. Potter, you got to understand. You're an old fart. All right, Mr. Potter, you're an old fart.
So let's rant, gentlemen. Also, too, if you're watching the live stream, you can feel free to rant with us, rant along with us in the chat. If we find something there particularly fun and fantastic, we will include it in the show and start talking about it.
We'll rant with you.
Let us rant.
Okay, I need some prompting. Go.
Okay, here I can. I know how we can get Chris started.
No. Don't even
Chris started.
No. You put that thing down and don't mention shaking.
All right.
Hey. The S word is not allowed on the podcast anymore.
That's right. God damn it.
It triggers one of our hosts.
All right.
So 2016.
Prince of Tides. No princes, no tides. Discuss.
Didn't that have that? What was the nose lady?
The nose lady. Awesome. All right, I love how we're gonna start. I love how we're gonna start the year-end rant about. I hate that Barbra Streisand bitch. All right, let's go ahead and start ranting. Oh, I hate her. Oh, Yenta. Come on.
Was that? No, I was talking Midler, Bette Midler.
Maybe everybody loves Midler, man. She sings The Rose.
Right.
Oh, God, I hate that song. That song is
Really?
so overplayed.
Really?
So, oh my God, I can't stand that song.
Do you hate it as much as I Am the Wind Beneath Your Wings?
I kind of don't like that one either. Both of those are pretty much
I think
played out.
This is going to have to be like
That's okay.
homebrew game. It's like Call of Cthulhu, but replace Cthulhu with Bette Midler.
No, Sandy Duncan for me. The whole Hills Are Alive Sound of Music thing. That's my.
Sandy Duncan with the wonky eye.
Yeah,
Call
Hills
of
Are Alive.
Cthulhu with Sandy Duncan, Bette Midler, and Barbra Streisand as the Cthulhu cult.
Right.
I mean,
I'm already.
Oh my God!
and
They could and then you could obviously throw in some Mega Streisand.
Oh,
yeah.
Mega Streisand in power armor.
Right, you could go ahead and use the Sci-Fi Companion or the Superpowers Rules Companion.
Yeah, either one of those.
Mega Streisand.
Yep.
So is this like opening up to the rant about like just the never-ending stream of new books? Like, is that the beginning?
It's whatever you want to talk about, baby.
Whatever I want to talk about.
I'll throw one on the fire.
All right.
We just sat here with this stream of consciousness bullshit and ended up with a completely unique game to run at a con. Why the fuck do I see so many people going, what can I play with Savage Worlds? I mean, come the fuck on. You can play anything. That's the whole point.
If you listen to this podcast, you will end up playing everything. Like,
Right, without spending an extra penny to do it.
And I think
basically with the core rules, I'm gonna do this.
Yeah,
And I think at the crux of this for me, because I don't rant about the way people play the game, the rant I have here is, why isn't Pinnacle plugging that giant hole that all this cash is flowing past them through, of all these people who are asking for this thing, with and here's how you play all these different things. Just, here's a book that's nothing but little like one-shot combinations of setting rules, or here's 200 ideas, just seeds. Just release a freaking plot seeds idea book from Peg of all the things you can do with Savage Worlds, and it's a plot seed followed by a page of, and these setting rules from these products will allow you to do this. Bam.
I'm gonna be
101 chases using the chase rules as examples,
or how to actually or this is what you can do with the mass battle. You don't have to just battle. Like, you can run a heist with mass battle. If you want to chase with mass battle, that can be a chase.
All right, so I'm going to mic drop and do my official starting rant for the end of the year. I am so sick and fucking tired of hearing Savage Worlds is good for campaigns, or good for one-shots and conventions, but it can't handle campaigns. I am so tired of even the question of, well, wait, can Savage Worlds do campaigns? I'm not sure it can even do campaigns.
Yeah, we had this discussion with then why do they call them plot point campaigns?
I was going to say, prior to 2015, didn't every single setting book have at least a short plot point campaign baked into the GM section? All of them.
Yeah. I don't understand where it comes from. It's like being somebody, oh, I'm a really big D&D 5e fan, but I'm not sure how it works for one-shots. For one setting adventures. I don't know if it would work for that sort of thing.
Right.
What? Oh, sure. No, you could run an epic fantasy campaign with D&D, but it really suffers at the just the one night session, the one sheet, the 4-hour session. It just falls apart. It doesn't handle it well.
It handles it beautifully. It handles it better than any other system I've seen.
Well, how do you do a campaign in Savage Worlds? The same way you do a campaign in any other fucking RPG. What do you mean?
A campaign is a interlinked set of stories.
I tell people, man, like when they say well, how do I do a campaign? I say start up with 5 adventures and you will have things just come from those 5 adventures.
Yeah,
just get started. It's just momentum, man. It's just momentum in storytelling, and just resist that urge to stop your players, because if you resist the urge to stop your players, they will start writing stories for you because they will do crazy, crazy things.
So, and I mean, obviously, I almost hate this before I say it. Is the problem with this that these people are complaining because they don't know how to advance a character? For a one-shot, I show up, I play the pre-generated character the GM handed to me that has some kitschy, hindrances that I can, make a lot of jokes with at the table and get bennies tossed at me. I've got all the skills I need for this adventure, but they don't know how to advance that character to make them a well-rounded character to play in 3 other adventures, 5 other adventures, 10 other adventures. Is that the problem that leads to this? Because I know the GM community is capable of running story arcs. The GM community for Savage Worlds are people who have been GMs for well over 20 years, who came to Savage Worlds because of the low prep. They're all 35 and older. They know how to run a campaign. So is the failure on the players not being given, here's the best way to level a character, or here's some examples of ways to advance your character? I mean, the advancement section of the book's only about 3 paragraphs long.
It could have something to do with it. I think one of the big influences in that is the fact that you go to the PEG website, shit tons of one sheets.
And they're free.
Yeah, shit tons of one sheets. You look at the core rules, shit tons of one sheets of Savage Tales. Not so much, here's a campaign module offered as a product. Like here's a setting, here's a campaign you can run for a fantasy thing in Savage Worlds. It leaves that more, the campaign is more interwoven and tied in together and published with the unique setting. And I think maybe that might be the point of confusion for a lot of people. Like, well, wait a minute, where's the campaign setting? I see all these one sheets. but where's the campaign setting? I don't know. I think you're also mentioning a good point where the core rules just kind of go, yeah, 1 advance every 5 XP, 4 per rank. Here's your ranks, and here's the edge requirements, and go figure it out. I don't think it gives you an archetype. One of the things that might be nice to see is, okay, here's our archetype section. Here's the same archetype advanced to seasoned rank and what it looks like. Here's the same archetype advanced to veteran, and maybe give you a rank, end of rank kind of thing in the core rules. I can kind of see that.
Expand the archetype section, what, 4 or 5 pages at most, and that would give you room to put, stat blocks for different ranks.
I have
some idea of how to advance a character.
I have no idea how often I have new players come in and they turn to the archetype section thinking that's their class. And then when it's time to advance, they're like, okay, what new skills do I get? I said, well, you have to pick them. And they just look at me dumbfounded, which, okay, I'm going to go ahead and start my rant, understanding the difference between, oh, well, Savage Worlds, you can't do this because, like, there are no classes. And I'm sitting here thinking, you make your own, man. It's a toolbox.
Yeah, you make your own class.
Like,
yeah,
okay,
you don't need a class system.
I can go to another system and I can play a ranger, and then after like so many XP, I have like trick shot or, these other bits and bobs that are already predestined. Or I can play Savage Worlds and literally pick what I want. If I suddenly decide that that guy who started out as a ranger doesn't need to be a ranger, I can start making them a face character. I don't have to like pick up a pre-made package. I can make my own, and I can trap it too, because when you take your arcane background and you take your trappings, you can add your own flavor to it. And people come from other systems and they sit there saying, well, I don't know, man, I can't do this. And I'm sitting there like, I bite my lip. I bite my lip and say, your problem is you just can't think of how to do it.
Yeah. No biting your lip. Tell them this is how you can do it. Show them that it's a system that you're not constrained in what you can do.
Right. Smack the device right out of their hand, put both hands on the table, shake them, and go, wake the fuck up, Jones.
Okay. Right. You can play like a system, and you can get an encyclopedia of magic that is like 5 books thick, and they have like a dozen spells, and if you cover up the name of the spell and just break it down to brass tacks, half of the spells do the same thing.
Well, we've said this before, too, on the podcast. Savage Worlds, really, you need to either run it and or play it 5 to 15 times. And then at some point, boink, light bulb comes on like, oh, I get it. Oh, I get it. I get it. I think that, I think there's a little bit to be said about that as well from Dustin's standpoint that, and for Dave as well, if you're coming from a D20 background that's class oriented and your advancements are spoon-fed to you already predetermined, I can understand why you might have problems with advancement coming into Savage Worlds. It's a whole new bicycle you have to get on with training wheels on it before you can go anywhere. And so I think it's it's kind of the GM's responsibility to parrot that forward and go, what do you want to do? Tell me what you want to do. Okay, you could take this edge to do that. That would accomplish this. You could do this. You could do that. You could do this. Oh, you want to make a druid? Okay. You just take whatever arcane background makes sense and go ahead and just trap everything with a nature trapping. Oh, you shapeshift, but you only shapeshift into nature's beings like your bear or blah, blah, blah. Or your entangle spell is literally weeds and vines that grow and entangle people. That's what it looks like. You kind of have to ferry players along until they get that light bulb moment. And there is this thing too where you get a new player, they struggle with the rules. Like, wait, hold on. So I rolled a wild die and the other die.
Wait, I don't have 50 hit points.
Right. So we're dealing with it right now in our Friday night game where we've got a player who's new to Savage Worlds going, wait, okay, give me a vigor roll against fatigue. Wait, what? Okay, so I roll. Okay, but if I and the player keeps going, wait, so I can, even if I don't have the skill on my character sheet, I could still attempt it. I just roll a D4 to -2, and she keeps repeating it every time she does it. I think more so just to reinforce it in her mind. And I look forward to the point where that player, at a certain point in that campaign, the light bulb just goes off, and it's like, aha! Oh, I've got it. Oh, I have so got it. The rules don't fucking matter anymore. I get it. It's all about the role play. The rules support wide open gameplay.
I'm going to like drop a metaphor here. Like, I can try to fly a plane. Doesn't mean I'm going to land it, but I can try in real life. Like, you can do anything. You just...
Yeah, you may not do it well.
You may not do it well. And like with exploding dice, you may just get lucky. And that's one of the things I actually like is you get those weird cinematic moments where you Mary Sue the shit out of something just because you exploded.
Yep.
So I guess if we're going to have this big pyre of different things we hate about the game, the next one I would throw out there has...
hate's a strong word.
An appropriate one.
But this is definitely one of those things I can honestly say I hate about the game is this idea that because there's a 60% chance to succeed on a D4 with a D6 wild die, that the game is too freaking cinematic pulpy to do gritty. And they just completely miss things like, you know, the -2 penalty for unskilled, or they miss things like, you know, oh look, it's dim, so you get a -1 to everything, or unstable platform, or it's cold outside, so give me a vigor roll or face fatigue that adds additional penalties to everything you do. Or, oh wait, and here's a big one that freaking happens all the time is, oh, I get to do X. Yeah, but who's challenging you while you do that? Why are you getting to pick open the lock on the door and there's nobody guarding the damn door? There's no trap. There's no negative. What the hell? Why are we leaving out so much of what's great when we put these examples up of why this game is too pulpy or cinematic?
You know, and that's one of the things I'm going to rant about is when people say that Savage Worlds is too pulpy. I can trace it back to the fact that we had a pulp companion, and Daring Tales had a lot of pulp compendiums, but they also had space opera and cyberpunk. They had some good stuff, but like the real standout for a lot of people was the pulp rules.
Well, it probably doesn't help that one of the first settings to be released was Slipstream, which is Flash Gordon. I mean, it was an homage to the 1970s pulp sci-fi.
Well, you have to remember this too. There is a Savage Worlds Explorers edition, which looked like a 1940s Indiana Jones passport, kind of marketed as a pulp book visually. As far as the layout goes, it was marketed as basically, if you take a look at Savage Worlds Explorers edition, the interior art, the way the layout was done, cobras around columns for heading chapters, everything, that book shouts Indiana Jones.
But you want to know something funny?
Yeah, it does.
There's another book out there in the Pinnacle line that has almost the same motif, 50 Fathoms. You look at the artwork and the layout and the design of 50 Fathoms, it is almost identical to the Explorers Edition. It is almost identical to the Deluxe in a lot of ways. And it's a fantasy setting, not a pulp one.
Granted, if you dig deep enough.
I'm going to go ahead and say the reason why people say that it's pulpy, if you get down to brass tacks, pulp literally means it's entertaining. It's just here to entertain you. That's why you have superheroes. That's why you have Conan, which is fantasy.
Pulpy.
Huh? Someone actually told me the other day that they prefer D&D to Savage Worlds because Savage Worlds is too pulpy. It's too pulpy. It's too pulpy. They succeed too often. And I looked them dead in the eye and I said, you do realize that D&D 5th edition has a 60% success rate for all combats baked into the core, regardless of what level your character is. You will always succeed 66% of the time. That's the way that game was designed. That was the whole core of how it was written. And they looked at me dumbfounded, like I had just slapped their baby, to point out that that game is no more gritty than Savage Worlds is.
But it's like the people who defend art house films, you know? Like it's got, well, I will say this, like we owe an homage to D20 because it's the first kid on the block. It's the oldest kid on the block. But it's not the only kid on the block. Like there are other systems, man, and Savage Worlds has it's just as beautiful. And I can understand Savage Worlds. Like people can pick up Savage Worlds, play it in a night, and get the bare bones basic understanding. If they're like sitting there rolling and like, you know what, I got a 4, I'm good. But like I'm sitting there with like the 5e and the Pathfinder crowd, and they're like, okay, well you have this blank here, and you have to roll a d20, and like here's your pluses and here's your negatives, and we're gonna oppose this. And apparently in your race background, you were at some point a half-elf drow Tiefling? No, I think that's wrong. I'm like looking through, and it goes back to it. It goes back to the whole bit we were just talking about.
I think too, there's a certain amount of that is, oh, look at us, we have special knowledge, and it's love of complexity. Making you special because you understand the complexity, and you're the one that speaks that language. There's a certain draw and attention to that. My issue is where people, like what David's saying, is like, well, Savage Worlds, you can't run something that's gritty in Savage Worlds. Hello, my name's Jared Savage Daddy Gunning. Let me introduce you to a world of hell. I can run something ultra gritty in Savage Worlds with a few, not hundreds, not pages, not volumes, a couple paragraphs of tweaks to the core rules that make it deadly.
It speaks to the core rules. It's just enforcing the core rules. Like I said, hazards that we talked about during the green room are the biggest thing that just gets left on the cutting room floor by most GMs. That if those were enforced, a whole lot more characters catch a case of the dead.
Or if people understood setting rules. All right. So let's kind of go off. People are like, well, how do we play W40K in Savage Worlds? And I look at them, I say gritty damage and skill specialization. How do we play Star Wars? And I'm like, it's literally just the deluxe. It's just the deluxe. They even have droids in there. Arcane background, miracles, give them a chainsaw.
Well, and okay, so and here's what Dave is saying too. Like people are like, oh, well, it's just so. I think a lot of what Dave is saying is people equate pulpy with fluffy. Oh, that game is fluffy.
Yeah, not gritty enough. Yeah,
there's no way you can't die in Savage Worlds. Oh, yes, you can. Oh, yes, you can. If it's like, okay, well, now we're gonna fight. No, we're not. We're gonna fight on top of a speeding train at night. So now you're a chance to hit somebody. Yeah, all you gotta do is roll a 4, but -2 for dim lighting. Oh, and -2 for unstable platform penalty. You're already at a negative fail to do a ranged attack. So now you got to get up close. And now when you throw it, it's screwing with your parry. And then what happens when your character is thrown off of a speeding train traveling 60 miles an hour? Oh, there's this little thing called falling damage. And it's nasty. It is fucking nasty. Oh, well, screw it. I've got 3 bennies. I can soak wounds. Yeah, here's 12 wounds, bitch. Yeah. Soak. You're already at a -3 on your vigor roll. Go ahead. soak.
I'd love to see you roll a 48 with your D6 vigor.
Right. Oh, you didn't soak that shit. You got all those wounds. Now let's roll for incapacitation. Oh, by the way, you used all your Bennies trying to soak because you're an idiot. And here we go. Go ahead and make that vigor roll with no chance to re-roll it. And you're at -3. Oh, and you rolled a 4.
At a
You're dead.
-3, just gonna say.
Oh, yep. But you rolled a 4. You got a 4 on your vigor roll. That's a success. Yeah, -3. That's a 1. Congratulations, you're dead. Oh, but Savage Worlds is fluffy.
So you absolutely, if you run the rules, can get your case of the dead. But I will say this at the other end of that is the idea that you can absolutely survive a bazooka to the face. And this one is where the problem is not the game. The problem is the GM. And I mean, I hate to say it. I really do, because again, I don't like to ever rant about the way someone's playing their game. But it's the GM's job to come up with a creative way that the character just soaked that wound. Whether it's, it hit and it caught the strap of their backpack and rips and they tumble and fall over, but it doesn't detonate, so it goes off and hits something behind them. However you come up with a way to make your game more interesting based on that dice roll is way more important than the idea that, yes, they could get shot with a bazooka, catch it in the face, and still live.
Yep. I'm a big fan of the angry villager with a pitchfork. Because he can kill anybody.
Yeah. I hear people do the whole, well, I'm going to start in media res in Savage Worlds. You're going to kill your one of your characters in the first 5 minutes of play if you're not careful. Mm-hmm. It's just the way it is. I mean, these things that work with great in other games don't always work perfect in Savage Worlds, because if you throw damage at your player characters, there's a chance one of them catches a case of dead.
Yeah, and I kind of wonder, we just went through a big discussion. We're getting ready to switch games and switch GMs. And one of the guys I've been playing our role-playing games with this guy for over 25 years now. He hosts the games at his house. But we were talking, and he just made a comment kind of off to the side. He's like, yeah, Savage Worlds is okay. I just don't like the combat system. And I'm thinking to myself, why? What is it about? Is it that combats don't take, 2-3 hours? Is it the fact that you don't have 150 hit points? Are you scared that you're going to die? Maybe that's it. We just sit here talking about how you can't die in Savage Worlds, and I'm thinking, is he worried that he's going to lose a character? I can't figure out why and what it is about the combat that he loves D&D combat. I mean, if his game could be nothing but combat, running and playing, I think he'd be in hog heaven. And I don't get it. It confuses me.
I think a lot of it is he's what he's used to. He's comfortable with one style, not with the other.
Very true.
I gotta tell you, man. Like, I've got some friends. They play other systems. Not to name any names, but a combat in some of these systems will take 2 hours. Like 2 to 3 hours just having a regular fight. And I'm sitting here thinking this would be done in 2 to 3 rounds in Savage Worlds. It would be so much quicker, and then we could get to character interactions. We could further the plot. We could just have fun. I'm just like sitting here while people discuss strategy. Okay, that's an important part. I'm not going to knock it, but for the love of goodness, can we roll some dice and figure out what we're going to do?
I've had combat in Savage Worlds where it was 2 wild cards and 2 extras per player character. And because of initiative, we didn't finish the first round.
Mm-hmm.
It's that fast in Savage Worlds. It can be over the same way it can be in an actual firefight, where one guy just dumps his whole clip and hits nothing but the side of the barn behind the guy he was shooting at. The other guy does the same thing, and they both go their own separate ways. But it can also be over where the one guy just pulls the gun, shoots the guy in the face, and walks away. I mean, it can be that quick.
Yeah, I don't know.
One of the things I like about Savage Worlds combat,
and I think I want him to like it. And maybe that's part of my problem is I want him to like. But if I run Savage Worlds, he won't play.
But that's just you being a fan. We all do it.
It is.
I mean, look at the current kerfuffle going on about Star Wars. You've got one side of the debate being people who enjoyed the new movie, and the other side of the debate being people who didn't like the new movie. But the actual fight is the people who liked the movie trying to tell the people that didn't like the movie why they should like it, and the people who didn't like the movie trying to tell the people that they liked it why they shouldn't have liked it. We're all trying to force the other person to be the same kind of fan we are and love it the same way we do.
Very true. Yeah, we got into that discussion the Saturday after we went to the movie. We got into that discussion because I didn't really care for it and was saying why, and my friend was like, "Well, you're wrong. This is why you should like it." And I'm like,
"Really? Well, concentrated nerd rage."
That's just part of nerd culture, right? That's just part and parcel for nerd culture. Let me tell you, not only you're wrong, let me tell you why you're wrong about your opinion. Because here's the reason why. Statistically speaking, and then canon, that's why you should like this movie.
Well, and that's why I always say I don't like to rant about the way people play the game. If you're going to enjoy the game a certain way, that's the way you should play. I got into a long conversation about 2 years ago now with Joey Mullins, one of the guys that's in the G+ community for Savage Worlds. Great guy, but he does not run a game where the player characters are ever in true danger. They're in the appearance of danger, but they're never in true danger. That's just the way he and his players enjoy the game. To me, that sounds like an awful mess that I would never want to be involved in, because if there's no real risk, there's no real reward for me. But that's because we both play the game for something different.
Yeah.
And that's not a problem. The problem really arises when someone tries to force somebody else to play that way. So I don't like to rant about the way someone plays the game, but at the same time, don't tell me that the game can't do something when you're actively not using the rule that does what you say it can't do.
Yeah, that's a big one.
I think
when you point out the rule and go, look, this is the rule, and they're like, oh no.
Savage Worlds can't do serious, grim, gritty games. Okay, well, then you should be enforcing things like natural healing rolls. You should be enforcing things like gritty damage. You should be enforcing things like the golden hour. Oh, well, we play Heroes Never Die because I don't want the player characters to be in any real risk of danger. Okay, so how do you expect to run a gritty game if you're going to throw out all the gritty rules?
I want it to be Batman Dark. But not really.
That's all black. It is, baby.
I just want it to be thematically dark. That's what I mean when I say gritty.
It's like, I will describe it in narrative, not in mechanic. Yes, Master Wayne, I prepared your armored underwear.
I think Sam's got a point. That what he makes, and I think that's what my friend did. Where my friend sees this. He says, if you like Savage World, it's because you lean more toward the RP of RPG, and others lean more towards the game. I wouldn't say that's for everybody, but yeah, I mean, I can kind of see what he's saying. Is maybe my buddy's more into the gamified part of it, and he just wants to hack and slash shit and have attrition.
Maybe, but I think there's another side to that. I think if you are very deeply invested in the RP and you're I've got my teeth into this character, you're so afraid that character is going to die that the mechanics in Savage Worlds, meaning that you could be killed at Legendary by a novice with a pitchfork.
Right.
I think that there's an aspect of that in Savage Worlds that you could argue the other direction, that the RP side of it leans towards D&D because the character is protected by this massive pile of things that the GM has to attrit away before the character's in any real risk of danger. You're the same character at 2 hit points as you are at max hit points in D&D. It's only when you get down to that last one that you're in any real danger.
Right, that's 0.
Savage Worlds, I can die in that.
Yeah.
1 dice roll.
Yeah, I don't care how big bad, I don't care what your rank is, you got 3 wounds, and we all soak them the same way.
So I think there's an aspect of it that those other games, the character is the my precious that has to be protected, and you have an army of hit points and special abilities and everything piled up on top of it to protect the precious.
I think you're right. I think that's like one of the big things that sort of does help and doesn't help at the same time. I like the fact that there is a certain layer of protection. Maybe that's just me. I do always play Heroes Never Die. I mean, not always, but a good portion of the time I do. Mostly because I don't like killing characters, and I think that's a lot of GMs. But I get what you're saying.
And I get that.
Level of protection.
And in the past, I have said things like, well, that makes you a weak-willed GM if you're afraid to have a character die in the story. Because in 10 cases out of 10, when I hear a GM say, I don't like to kill player characters, they've been convinced it's their fault that the character dies, rather than the player made a bad choice, found themselves in a bad situation, and then the dice resulted in a character's death. Rather than being willing to step back from it and not take on that ownership, as soon as you say, I don't like to kill player characters, you're saying that as the GM, you have final arbitration over that. And we all decided when we started playing the game that the dice had final arbitration over that.
There's a certain point that, like, no matter how powerful you are, you still have to abide by the rules of the universe that you're working in. So even the GM has to abide by those rules.
Hey, the Emperor in Return of the Jedi took no wounds. He was just thrown to his death by his apprentice from full health to dead. That was a narrative death. There were no dice rolls, no nothing. He was picked up from behind and coup de grace down a giant crater.
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Well, I think it smacks of this. I agree. It's GMs don't kill characters. They don't. Unless they just exercise GM fiat and go, oh, lightning bolt, you're dead. Ooh, boulder, you're dead. Then okay, GMs kill characters. But I think there is that kind of feeling with players. You killed my character because this is the game world that you run, so you're responsible because my character's dead. And the GM really needs to go, hey, don't put that on me. You're the one who decided to go try to kill a dragon all by yourself with a picnic fork. And we rolled dice. Everything was fair by the rules, and you didn't win. That's your fault you're dead, not mine. Well, you could have made the dragon pull his punches. You could have made the dragon leave. What?
You killed my character. You drove a tank out of an airplane and tried to fly it with a parachute and the cannon. I did not kill your character. Gravity killed your character.
Right, once again, this is why Savage Worlds has the setting rules for Heroes Never Die and a bunch of other setting rules that you can tweak if you're not in for a verisimilitude game. Or you want to protect the characters with an added layer of you're not going to get the deads unless it's dramatically important. Here's the thing. I think people need to really read the Heroes Never Die setting rule. It doesn't say heroes don't die. It says that the GM decides when it's dramatically appropriate if they die.
So Sunset Sam brings up an idea, and I want to touch on it for a minute. Sam says that where is it here? Because it's scrolled a little bit.
Yes, jumping without a parachute issue aside. That one?
the one I'm talking about is that he gets the aspect is important, David. A lot of players really don't find a random death of their character a good night. Other than a stupid decision, a meaningless death really lets the air out of some people. And my problem with that statement, Sam, is that person never should have sat down at the table if they didn't agree to the same set of rules everybody else has agreed to, that the dice can come up dead and your character dies, and we all have to find an interesting story to tell about what the dice just told us happened. It's not about your warm, fluffy connection to your character. It's about all of us working together to craft this story around this thing that just happened because the dice said it did. That's the game we all agreed to play. Now, if you want to run a savage setting rule that does away with that, like Heroes Never Die, that's great. But there again, you all agreed to play by those rules in advance. If you didn't want to play in that style of game, you should have spoke up right away at the beginning and not played. We've had numerous people who've jumped into games where I was running Heroes Never Die and they got upset that their character didn't die because the dice came up that way. And then I've had at the other end of the spectrum, the players who write to me 3 weeks later about how it's so wrong I won't let them bring their character back from the dead because of the dice. And it's like, but we agreed on this set of rules, and that's what we're all here to do. And we created this really interesting moment where your character sacrificed himself and saved the rest of the party. I'm not going to take that interesting moment out of the story because you are not done playing Sam Stent and his amazing schlong of power.
Yeah. So there are two setting rules that sort of apply to that. We've talked about Heroes Never Die, which is kind of hard to pull off. And then, I don't know if any of you are fans of Savage Rift's Blaze of Glory, which I'm pretty sure is going to start making it into other settings.
I was just going to bring that up.
That's just the mechanical way to go. Here's some bennies for narrative storytelling to give you more control over your dramatic death that you're going to have this session. Yep. Listen, nothing against Savage Rifts. Big whoopity doo. I don't see why everybody's kissing the ass of this. Okay, great, thanks. Okay, I get it. But here's the thing: if you're playing Indiana Jones, Indiana Jones doesn't die. There's a lot of false starts. There's a lot of part of that genre and part of that story is the fact that he never dies. Oh yeah, he can fall out of an airplane, inflate an inflatable raft, coast down a white water, and roll up to the shore unscathed. Why? Because that's the world we're playing in. Fine, but bumps and bruises. But the thing is, there's also a point throughout that story where there's all kinds of false apparent deaths that are meant to keep you as an audience member on the edge of your seat. And that's just part of the storytelling trappings of that genre. That's why you have a Heroes Never Die setting rule. Oh, look. Oh, no, he fell off the cliff. Oh, my God. He obviously plummeted to his death. Oh, boo. No, at the last minute. Tune in next week. Oh, no, here's what happened last week. Look what really happened. Whoosh, the whip came out and he swung to safety.
Well, and I think that's the other aspect of this is that the people who have, I think, the worst time dealing with a character dying in the game are the people who want their game to be Lord of the Rings or the Indiana Jones or this other piece of fiction that they read or saw a movie about or went and saw a 9-part action series on Netflix. Well, the problem is, one, those characters are pencil whipped. They absolutely get to beat up on the other guy because the guy holding the pencil said they do that. There's no dice involved. It's in
the script, baby.
There's no actual randomization there. But the other side of that is also that all of those, if they were run as a Savage setting, would be run with Heroes Never Die. Frodo gets skewered by the giant cave troll. Heroes Never Die, and then he reveals he had on Mithril. He didn't have Mithril on his character sheet. He had Heroes Never Die as a setting role, and the GM reveals he was given a set of Mithril. Frickin' what's his name? Aragorn tumbles off the cliff on a warg, it lands in the river, drowns, and is drug out by his horse and taken back to friendly territory in the middle of a war zone. No one attacked the horse carrying the dying leader of the enemy army. Heroes never die.
I just want to point out that session where the GM decided he was going to break out the nuclear bomb, and the best thing that he or the player could come up with was crawling inside of a refrigerator.
Right.
I'm sorry. That was the worst way to do it. Like, come on, guys.
He's Indiana fucking Jones. Of course he can survive a nuclear blast by hiding in a Frigidaire. Of course he can.
Yep.
Why not?
Because apparently refrigerators are not only radiation proof, but can survive a nuclear blast.
Okay, I'm going to rant for a second. Here's what I have the rant problem
Chris
with.
Tried to break in here twice to say something.
No.
I'll give Chris a second. I'll give Chris the floor in just a moment, but I'm going to filibuster for a second. Okay, this is the thing that I have a real problem with a lot of people, where I'm okay. They have wildly no problem with suspension of disbelief for the most idiotic concept. They're all along for the ride, but one tiny thing. Oh, come on. Versatility. Like, really? So you're all about watching Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Inc. group, a live action where the dog fucking talks. No problem with that. Oh, of course. Why not? Wait a minute. They get demon possessed? Wait, how can they bring back Scrappy? Now I got a real problem with Scrappy being in this one because, according to
the talking puppy.
What the fuck are you talking about? This is what you have the problem with. You're okay with this, but this is a bridge too far for you. This is where you draw the line and go, "Oh, come on." What? Anyway, go ahead, Chris.
I was going to mention what we've already mentioned about the Crystal Skull, how horrible it was.
Oh, no, there's no doubt the Crystal Skull is a horrible movie, and South Park got it right about George Lucas and them raping Indiana Jones. Absolutely got it right.
Oh, yeah.
They absolutely got it right.
He was so ashamed of the whole situation that he had to sell everything to Disney just to cover it up, just so that we would forget.
Now, I also agree, Dustin, too. If I'm watching a movie and somebody is in a nuclear test zone and they survive a nuclear blast by crawling in a refrigerator and their name isn't Dr. fucking Indiana Jones, then yeah, I go, wait a minute, come the fuck on.
Yeah, I can see that. You should, I guess you have to look at going in what you're going to see. And that's kind of the same thing too. Going in the game. This is the kind of game that we're going to have. And this is what may or may not happen in this game. And let's all work together to make it, the best game it can be. And if you get a case of the deads, buck up, little camper.
Yeah, it's just a game. Go ahead and create another character that gets involved in the
get back in about 20 minutes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'll also say this too. I agree. There's more of a nuance to what Dustin is saying too, and I get it. I want to let you know I understand. I read between the lines on it. It's the difference between sloppy up close magic and expertly done up close magic, where you look at it and it's seamless, and you're like, "Wow, the fuck did they do that?" Versus a guy doing the same trick doing it sloppily. Yeah, okay. Could they have come up with a better explanation as to how he survived it? Maybe. And I agree, it's a little bit of lazy writing to go, refrigerator. But still, I don't have a problem with it when I'm watching the movie. I don't walk out of the movie going,
done to survive a nuclear blast at ground zero.
Maybe not put him in a situation where he's in a nuclear blast.
That's it. They literally could have just cut that scene out. They didn't even have to have that scene in there. Like, they come up off of the rocket sled, and then he gets picked up after that. The whole movie would have been better if they just skipped over that scene and he walked through the nuclear test zone after it had been destroyed, and then the army picks him up.
Or the fact that maybe Shia LaBeouf isn't in the movie at all would have made it a better movie.
And I guess that scene sticks with me so much because I don't remember any more of the movie.
Well, I don't have any more.
Wasn't there something about aliens and spoilers?
Yeah, something about aliens. Here's what I don't have a problem with the refrigerator scene for this reason, because then I would have a huge problem with the idea of all-terrain vehicle tanks floating down a river and then driving right out of it with no problem,
right? Or off a cliff onto a tree. Yeah.
Right. And for the same reason, I have no problem with somebody jumping out of a twin-engine plane in a inflatable raft. And I'm like, okay. Yeah.
I gotta say, man, like when LaBeouf is swinging through the trees, I have never seen anybody get so many raises on a beast friend roll in my life. Like, he just became fluent in monkey. God, what is wrong with you?
I don't even remember any of this.
Oh, it's a horrible movie, and the problem is it suffers from.
Chris, it's worse if you do.
Yeah. You know what? They say that trauma survivors black out memories.
Well, I'm wondering, what was Crystal Skull? Was Crystal Skull pre-stroke or post-stroke? Because maybe that's one of
the stroke.
Well, maybe that's the actors.
No, for me, maybe that's part of the reason why I can't remember is because it was after my stroke, and some things are a little fuzzy.
It's where they should have stopped right after The Last Crusade with Sean Connery as a senior Indiana Jones. That's where they sort of kind of should have stopped it.
So I got a question. Should it take you 3 hours plus to create a Savage Worlds character?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Is that going to be a rant?
Are you
a rant?
At what level are you making this character?
Novice.
No additional advances. Just
just novice. Like 3 hours. Everybody else is done.
Is it like a regular game, or is it like one of those special nuanced European games?
No, it was.
The player is not familiar with the system.
Not overly, but he's a player who will spend 6 hours creating a D&D character.
Well,
so maybe it's his thing. I don't know.
Is he trying to Mary Sue Min-Max's Savage Worlds character?
That's a good question. It just seemed like at the time, while we're all sitting around, and are you done yet? Nope. Oh, for the love of God! Could you hurry up? It's not that difficult.
Wait, was he playing an assassin in a noir game?
No, it wasn't that. It wasn't that player. I'm going to try not to name names, but it's somebody I've played with for a while.
I would say if that's the case, then you have one of two situations: either the player doesn't understand how to build a character in Savage Worlds, or he has lactus conceptusis. I don't know what I want to play, so let me try this. Ooh, no, wait, no,
effective, and I don't have anything for the personality in the character, but I do know that when we get to the game mechanics, I want the character to be effective. That is what that tells me.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, to be fair, I could be completely wrong, and it's just somebody who likes to pour a lot of time and energy into the backstory and history of their character in their head that they never plan to tell you. Because I've played with those people who come to the character and they've got 3 novels worth of information they're willing to tell you. They haven't written any of it down, but they've created it all in their head.
I have gotten character sheets that actually had lists of items that people were going to buy and sell to other people in the game.
It's meant to be a character sheet with all their advances pre-bought.
Oh,
this is the entire arc of the character.
And see, I'm okay with that if they want to do that. Don't be beholden to it. But I mean, I've got a friend who did that for a Deadlands character. He had his first 20 XP, or not 20, but his first 20 advances. He had them all mapped out, and it was kind of like the. Do you remember the character sheets that Triple Ace games used to put out, that you could just click a button to advance the character, and it had it all there. And so it was that fast for him. He kind of knew, but he did make a couple changes, so he wasn't beholden to what he was doing. But I'm kind of okay with that if you kind of have an arc, but you have to be willing to say, oh, well, this is what I was going to do, but it never happened. What's that?
Oh, look, I got the one eye hindrance.
Yeah.
Maybe that changes things.
Yeah, now what am I going to do? Exactly.
Okay, well, when I see that or I hear that, my first gut reaction to that is you're trying to win at role playing. You're trying to find some loophole of the perfect character build, like you're playing D20, and this is Savage Worlds. Go ahead, knock yourself out, and then you'll realize, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter.
Right, exactly.
Oh, I'm going to make sure I've got D8 fighting, so I have a certain parry. Then I'm going to take edges that increase my parry and toughness. Then I'm going to take edges that eliminate penalties for me making two-fisted. Ooh, two-fisted and ambidextrous, so I don't get the -2 offhand penalty on the second attack. And try to build this fighter McFighters build, perfect build.
Don't forget Frenzy.
Frenzy, yeah, good luck. Because once again, a villager with a pitchfork and a D4 fighter can kill you.
Yep. And they will kill you hard.
So you learn pretty quickly that there's no such thing as stacking the deck in your favor to build an effective character, as much as, okay, let's go with something that's a concept that I can actually role play.
See, but this goes back to the previous conversation. You only learn that lesson when the character catches a case of the dead. If you play in games where no one ever dies, you never learn the lesson that you can't plan that far in advance because the character's going to catch a case of the dead session 1.
Sure.
And I mean, I'm not necessarily saying it's good, bad, or otherwise, but I mean that's absolutely part and parcel to one of these leads to the other to a certain extent.
Well, you know, I'm glad you can make 2 attacks at once, one with each hand, and never suffer an offhand penalty. That's not going to help you when you fall off a cliff.
Yeah. Or
that's not going to help you when somebody goes, magic your ass, dance, monkey, dance.
Swim the white water rapids.
Yep. Yeah, here you go. Climb this wall. Oh, you didn't take climbing. Did anybody take? No, nobody took climbing. All right, now swim this ravine. Oh, nobody took swimming. Shocking.
Yeah, swimming's not an important skill. Swimming and
amazed.
climbing. You don't need swimming or climbing.
Yeah, I'm amazed. This is the first time. This is like the 3rd or 4th session of Deadlands we've run, and for the first time of actually Dead Ends. Sorry, and the first time I've ever had a character who's gone. So we're going to be characters trying to survive in a post-apocalyptic zombie world. Yep, I've actually had characters take climbing and swimming. I'm like,
I played in a zombie apocalypse game, and I took climbing, and it was the most valuable skill because. Right? Like the horde comes, and I'm the only one they can't get. Like everybody else is like, "There's zombies everywhere. We're gonna die." It's like, Dustin, what's your character do? I climb on top of the quickie mart.
Yeah, give me a climbing roll. Oh yeah, no problem.
Yep, you're right.
Hey, that's easy. Okay, do you have climbing? No. Okay, D4 -2. Root pop.
I was like, I think I had like a D8 or something. And I was just like, like I'd get raises a lot just because of how it rolled out. And the GM is like, all right, man, you Spider-Man on up there. Now what? I'm like, I guess I just shoot at them from the safety of.
You get a number 32 can of pudding, chocolate pudding, and you sit there and eat the pudding and kick your legs back and forth while you watch.
Whatever I do, I'm not going to be in the house.
Right. So, I mean, a lot of this goes back to, I think a lot of this goes kind of back to, well, one of our biggest, I think all the hosts have one big rant in general. Read the fucking rules. And here's an idea. I don't know. Use them.
Yeah.
Use them when they're appropriate.
So Sunset Sam is asking, he's still on the whole death issue, and he's going, you know, do we all think it's a good idea if you know, someone suffers multiple deaths every Friday night? You know, they're losing, 2-3 characters a night every Friday. Well, no, but that's
another error.
That also tells me the player is doing something actively wrong that's getting their character dead. You're not going to roll that many failures on dice that result in death. It takes a lot of dice failures in Savage Worlds to get to dead. It's not just oh, look, I took some wounds, I'm instantly dead. There's like 4 dice rolls between I took some wounds. And
right.
Right.
So I mean, there's a lot of protection there. So if someone's dying that much, I would say there's something wrong. But that's also why there's a setting rule in the book called Heroes Never Die. So as a GM, you have a tool to deal with this. We're not saying it's a bad rule, man. We're just saying once you agree on a set of rules, fucking play with them, and don't say it can't do the other end of the spectrum. It can't do gritty. Well, that's because you're playing Heroes Never Die. It can't do, fluffy bunnies. That's because you're not playing Heroes Never Die. There's a lot of rules in this book that let you play all kinds of game. No one's saying that one extreme is better than the other. We're just saying don't say the other doesn't exist simply because you don't play it.
Yeah, and I think if a player's losing 3 characters a session, there's something else going on.
Yeah, I would say that if that's the case, it seems like either you have like a really antagonistic GM.
Okay, hold on a second. I'm gonna jump in on that. Go ahead and continue that thought, but I'm gonna put a pinpoint in that. I'm gonna come back to that. Go ahead. Sorry.
So if the player's doing something stupid, then yeah, there's a good chance that they'll die if they're doing something stupid. If they're not doing anything stupid and it's like, okay, give me a driving check. All right, you drive off a cliff and you die. Okay. You're eating a sandwich. Okay, give me an agility check. You choke and you die. Like that kind of stuff. That would be a little bit antagonistic, and I don't know. That's kind of an at the table, peer-to-peer problem.
All right, I'm going to throw this out there real quick, and then we're going to kind of wrap this year-end rant up, unless anybody's got something else that we really want to. So if you got a rant that you haven't gotten to, make sure we get to it here in a second, because we're gonna wrap this up here in a second. Okay, so pro character death, anti character death. GMs are neutral character death. A good GM is neutral character death.
Okay, but I'm just
hold on.
Curtail your entire side log right there because you added an extra word. You said good GMs.
Okay.
An antagonistic GM, by definition, is a bad GM. It's not to say they don't exist, Jared.
Right. Okay, but I think more than anything, so let me ask this question. Is a GM who uses all the rules and plays his NPCs smart, is he being antagonistic?
No.
Because if you roll up on a battlefield, in a medieval fantasy, and you're swinging swords and you're coming up against a castle filled with archers with flaming arrows and a wizard, and you're attacking at night, and they do an illumination spell to light up the battlefield and then start firing fiery arrows into your ass, and you go, is the GM playing smart and using the rules the way that the character would be? And I'm not saying as a foil against the players, not the GM going, I'm going to find this obscure rule and pull it out and beat the player with it. But if it's within reason for what the NPCs would do narratively in that situation, realistically, is a GM who's playing smart and using the rules, is that antagonistic? Because I think that's what's perceived a lot of times as the antagonistic GM.
See, I think you are conflating two different things.
Okay.
You have been on the receiving end of being told that you've pulled a dick move or two in your time. The difference between you pulled a dick move or two in your time and the guy who introduces himself as LEDM, Lawful Evil Dungeon Master, who's going to use the rules to make the game perfect. I played with that asshole for years. He's still an asshole today. When he talks about the game, he talks about all the extra bullshit the character can do to you. That's what he's all about, is how can I use this rule to stick it in the other guy, twist the knife, and make it hurt.
Okay.
That's an antagonistic GM.
Right.
The GM who on occasion goes overboard and does something that's a dick move is probably a good GM who made a bad judgment call at the table about what would make the game more fun. Right, and there's a drastic difference between the two.
Also, an inexperienced GM as well, right? An inexperienced GM who, I didn't realize how
I've made
would affect that.
I wouldn't call myself inexperienced. I've been gaming for near 30 years now, so I don't think I can get away with saying I'm inexperienced. And I still make that mistake from time to time where in the heat of the moment when I'm trying to juggle the entire game world, I make a bad judgment call, have some NPC do something or some situation arise that is a little too harsh for the story, that seems out of place once it's explained to me after the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see where I went off the beaten path. Those moments happen to me today. So I can't necessarily blame it entirely on I think inexperienced GMs are going to run into it more often because it's a lot harder to juggle everything and watch out for those. But I think even an experienced GM can have a bad day and throw a dick move at their group without even realizing they did it.
Right.
Yeah. Nobody's got anything against a GM that, well, I mean, like reasonable people don't have anything against a GM that is fair. But when your monsters just manifest immunities to all kinds of damage all of a sudden, like when they didn't have something going on a minute ago and now they do, or they just know things that they shouldn't know for any reason whatsoever.
Or they fight to the death when there's no character reason for them to fight to the death, or vice versa.
Yeah.
They come fully equipped with all the things the party is weak to.
Right. Oh, they're mirror images of the party, so they have all their strengths and none of their weaknesses. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I would agree those are kind of dick GM moves. But I think also, too, what we're trying to convey as well for Sunset Sam is character death in a certain game a quote-unquote bad thing? Well, it depends on the game and the players you're playing with. If that's not what you're looking for in the game, that's fine. But it has to exist on both ends of the spectrum and in between. If you're playing a medieval fantasy game and the character keeps dying because, well, they keep fighting. Oh no, I'm going to take on this thing that I can't possibly defeat by myself because it's heroic and in my particular idiom, and they keep getting their skulls bashed in.
Unless you're playing the Monty Python Search for the Holy Grail version of fantasy, when you charge the dragon, you catch a case of the dead if you did it to save the rest of your party. You charge the dragon. Why? So the rest of the party could run away and the dragon was distracted. That makes sense.
So that is a blaze of glory.
That is being heroic, yeah.
And that fits, but I think we've beat that particular horse, and you said you're going to wrap it up, so I'm going to throw another body on the pyre, and this is that one I alluded to in the green room. I said is my number one absolute rant for the entire year. And quite honestly, it's that PEG hasn't done really anything. And I'm not jumping on what I know you're going to rant about, Jared, as much as when you compare this year to the years previous, we got an announcement at Gen Con that there's going to be an announcement later. We got a lot of conversation about a product that had been announced at the previous Gen Con and finally made it to Kickstarter this year. This has been a kind of a dead year for PEG. There's been a few things that came out, a lot of which came from licensees, and there's been a ton of Savage World stuff out there. But I just kind of feel like PEG kind of stepped in a bear trap with Rifts that kind of hung as an albatross around their neck, that there was so much work for them to do and such a big project and so little manpower to do it with, that they were kind of dragged down by it this year, and we didn't see that same release schedule we see from PEG usually. We didn't see the same amount of just public appearances. We didn't see the same amount of Clint and Jody getting out and selling stuff and interacting with the fans. We didn't see that face of PEG as much this year as we have in years past, and it makes the whole year feel flat. Because PEG is the driving force behind the community. I don't care. The license agreements are great. All the stuff that the community does is great. But the community can only carry itself so far. The company at the head of this has to be the one that actually owns the game and approves all this stuff. It's just, there's something about that just this year was like, yeah.
I just want to play off of that, what you just said, Dave, a little bit. All right, so I backed the Goon and I backed Fear Agent. And they're pretty good. but I kind of get the feeling that they were already made and that there was just a little bit of flavor added on in order to cover the need to be niched. Because playing Goon, I feel like I'm playing Deadlands without the fear check. Like there's a little bit of that kitsch there, that sort of like Dark Horse humor, but pretty much mechanically speaking, it is mostly Deadlands Noir. And Fear Agent is mostly, you know, just from the Sci-Fi Companion. It's like the last parsec, but with a little bit more of an edge. There are some like very unique monsters in it, but pretty much just it feels like they've already made this and that it's coming out with just like a sort of a new paint job. It's like Malibu Barbie with her new hat.
Well, I think we've seen an aspect of retread this year and over the last couple of years outside of gaming that's come to gaming to a certain extent. But I mean, one way to look at that is there's a difference between I'm playing it and it feels exactly the same and what Chris just did this year. You know, Buccaneer Between Hell and High Water. Yeah, there are 2 pirate settings for Savage Worlds. In my opinion, Buccaneer's not like either one of them. It's got enough that it brings to the table that's completely different. It's not a retread of the same ground. It's another avenue to go explore. Fear Agent, the Goon, don't necessarily feel like they're going in a new direction. They feel like we're rewalking the same path, and here's this one light or this one tree are out of place.
Right.
Right. My year-end rant for this, along this line with Peg, is this. I want innovation back. I'm not seeing innovative products. And I'm not necessarily picking on Flash Gordon, but I'm going to use Flash Gordon as an example. I don't need Flash Gordon other than the name and title of Flash Gordon because it already exists because it's called Slipstream. So I feel like that's not really an innovative product because we're just getting the licensing and now we put the serial numbers back on something that already exists. Deadlands Noir, innovative. Like, okay, here's another Deadlands setting. Hold on. It takes place in 1940s New Orleans. And it's more about detective. Ooh, interesting. To me, that's an innovative turn and twist.
Well,
on
and
the
they also
universe.
they did okay. So 30s is New Orleans, 40s is City of Gloom, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's 50s.
No, 50s is Los Angeles because it's all about movies.
No, I think 40s is Los Angeles and 54 is City of Gloom, and 27 is Chicago.
Yeah, I was gonna say. If anyone knows this, it's Dustin because he just ran a time-traveling Deadlands game.
Man, like I run like if you guys like people that are in Star City know this, I've connected all of my Deadlands universes through a time travel meta plot, and I've actually connected it to Weird Wars as well. So,
well, I was about to say, if you look at the core products from PEG, you know the tentpole core PEG products. You've got basically one world, the Weird Wars world that has Deadlands for the Wild West, Deadlands Noir for the 1930s noir detective thing. Then you've got ETU for the modern horror Cthulhu-esque. You've got, Deadlands Lost Colony for throwing it out into space. And then you've got all the Weird Wars things that pick up the major war spots in history. PEG as a company's primary universe is alt history horror.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's one solid narrative through the whole thing. They haven't weaved it all together, and you can point to some differences, especially Deadlands kind of changes the landscape physically of the planet and things like that. But for the most part, it's one solid world that kind of plays exactly the same. There's not a lot of setting rule difference between Weird Wars Rome and Deadlands Noir and Deadlands Lost Colony, because they're not just all drawing on the same core rules, but they're all reusing the same set of setting rules they keep putting in there. Yeah, there's some tweaks to handle, the Deadlands Noir has all the investigative stuff, and there's some tweaks to handle space and Lost Colony. But as far as like setting rules that really make those play and feel different, like the difference between, say, Deadlands and Rippers feel different. There's some massive setting differences there, but we're not seeing that in new products as much anymore.
Well, and the other thing I have a problem with too is the reboot mentality that I'm seeing coming from Peg in the last couple of years. It's, oh, now we have Rippers 2. Oh, now it's Necessary Evil 2. I'm not seeing innovation, and like I'm saying, with something like and compared to what we had before, that this current wave of just sort of here we'll slap a fresh coat of paint on something and drop it down, and we did a redesign. It's pretty much what you're used to. It's Rippers, but it's just a new story arch. The thing that I have the problem with is things like ETU, which amazing when it came out. Like, we're going to do College Cthulhu, and it's going to have a humorous bent to it. Amazing product. As far as an innovative step, in my opinion, not seeing that coming out of the company in the last year. And it may be, from what Dave is saying, is just overtaxed with taking on a huge success like Rifts. I'm going to say this too. I mean, huge success with Rifts. Absolutely no doubt about it. Groundbreaking for Peg and the company.
Yeah.
Groundbreaking implementation of bringing, but even that is recycling something from nostalgia and bringing it forward in Savage Worlds. And I'm not seeing this. We're going to try something new and exciting and give you something as far as even just a Peg setting. Go ahead, kickstart something. Give me something fresh. Instead of everything is the Weird Wars and Deadlands alt zombie history. Because what's coming next? Like just another redesign of the companions,
though, too.
What's that?
I actually have a bit of a theory. I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but quite honestly, I know Jody and Clint have been fairly busy getting their furniture company up and running this past year with their free time. So you have to assume that's taking away overtime that used to be spent on Peg stuff. Sure. But also, when was the last time we saw new blood introduced at Peg? Sean Patrick Fannin is one who did Riffs. I'm going to kick myself now for forgetting his name. Our friend down in Texas that did ETU.
Ed Wetterman.
Ed Wetterman, friend of the show. Both of which, though, have been kind of with Peg for 10 years. They've been releasing stuff and working on Savage Worlds for 10 years. Then you've got, obviously Shane and Clint. They're at Peg driving forward Necessary Evil 2, Rippers 2, and also, obviously, Savage Worlds Black, which we haven't touched on too much tonight. There's no new blood in that mix to go, hey, let's do this thing the fans have never seen or done with us before. There's no new idea from new blood, and I'm wondering if that's why we're seeing kind of this lull and fall back into, well, hey, we haven't updated Rippers to run with the newest version of the rules that we released in Deluxe. So let's release a new version of Rippers. I'm wondering if that's what we're seeing partially. But again, that's a theory. I really don't want to throw anybody under the bus because there's still great people who are putting on a great game. It's just, where's the...
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what 2018 brings.
I gotta say, man, I did enjoy. They put out the Adventures in Horror. I haven't run any of the horror books, the Tales of Horror, but I did buy them, and I thought that they were really good, and I thought you could definitely plug them into some games. But that's the kind of thing is. Those were like sample campaigns or sample adventures that you could run, and they were free to be experimented. And I think that's the issue is like they found a niche, and with that niche, now they're worried about stepping out. And it happens to every IP, man. Like, let's be honest. I'm gonna say it. A New Hope and Force Awakens were the same damn movie because people are afraid to go too far out there. Because if you just don't take the same thing that they had before and make it bigger, then people are like, no, that's not the way it would be. No, they would never do that. And I'm like, yeah, they would. Just being able to experiment, like that whole roll the die.
Well, here's all I'm saying. Understand, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying Peg makes a shit product. I'm not saying that at all.
We love Peg.
I'm not saying, oh God, their products are
podcast about a shitty game.
I'm not saying, oh, Rippers 2 is crap. I hated it. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying Flash Gordon.
I don't like the genre.
I think that Peg releases quality products, and I think they do it at a great price point too. No issue with the quality of what's coming out of them as a publishing house. Right. I would just like to see less reboot in 2018 and 19 and more. Let's come up with something truly unique. Let's create the Deadlands for the next decade, but something that is unique and the fans have never seen before, that is still shouts, oh, this is still Savage Worlds. Through, but new.
Lost Colony Reloaded was mentioned before, and it hasn't been put out. There is a Lost Colony Classic, but there's not a Lost Colony Reloaded. And I think something that would be really interesting is if they took Deadlands Noir and moved it ahead, and maybe in an alternate timeline we had like Deadlands Cyberpunk, something to that effect.
I want them to stop publishing Deadlands. Here's what I'm saying. Stop it. Stop it with Deadlands. We get it. It's Deadlands. Thank you. Please, not another Deadlands product.
It's a core product that makes a lot of money, though.
I know that.
It's the baby. It's the cash cow.
I know that. But even George Lucas branched off and did Indiana Jones. Of course, he had to get Steven Spielberg involved, but at least George Lucas went, okay, Star Wars is great. Let me create something new. That's all I'm saying. I want to see something fresh that isn't a repaint of here's something that happened already exists in Deadlands. That's the only thing I'm saying. That's
I'm not willing to say stop printing out Deadlands stuff. I just want to say give me a plot point campaign for Deadlands and a new setting that does something new. I don't need another edition of Deadlands again just yet. A plot point will do. Some one sheets, some adventure hooks, a 5 adventure little book that just, is a jumping off point. And then here's this brand new thing from a person who's never been part of PEG, who brought a great new idea and all the passion that comes with it. And it's going to hit the ground running, and then has Shane and Clint and all these people who've been baked in the industry for 30 years,
guiding the development of that.
PEG for 10, and Savage Worlds since its inception, there to guide this passion to something that's amazing that we just haven't seen before.
Right. Like give me license the world and works of Philip K. Dick, and then create me a setting that incorporates all of them. That's what I'm saying. Give me something innovative, something new that I can sink my teeth into as a Savage Worlds fan. That's all I'm saying.
Sunset Sam with Crimson Skies made me think Sky Captain of Tomorrow.
Yeah, something to that effect.
We already had the problem of it being pulpy. Go balls deep.
You know what? Let's
the world tomorrow.
Like I will say one of the great things about Wiggy is he will actually go fantasy in a different culture. Like Hellfrost, he will do Hellfrost, which is a bit Viking, and he will do like Land of Fire, which is desert. He will he won't just go for the same type of fantasy over and over again. He will find that mythology in a different place.
All right. Anything else? We got anything else in the chat room that we want to discuss? Get to
My Little Pony.
Be awesome. All right. With that, happy 2017. We can't wait for 2018. Until next year, this is your host, Jared Savage Daddy Gunning, for Chris, Dave, and Dustin saying keep rolling and stay savage.